Not going to go any further as I welcome you again to God's New Wineskin Church here in LA. I have to confess to you that today I did not prepare a message. Yan, sabi ng iba, wow. Kita kayo mukha ni Brother Manny, singkit, biglang lumaking ganun eh. Saan nakakita ng Sunday service yung preacher, walang message? I have to be honest with you, I do not have a message today. Because today we have a special guest. Yan. We have a special speaker, and matagal ko na po siyang nililigawan na mag-share sa atin the Word of God. And I believe today we are in for some treat from God. And I pray that we open our ears and our hearts and we be ready for the message of God today. Sige po, let's give Sister Alma, my better half. God bless you. Welcome for our message for today.
So I believe we are in a series of teaching, sabi ni Aling. So we can all understand Tagalog except for Brian, so I can make English. So our series for today, for the month of November is, Are We There Yet? So there will be 4 Sundays that will be discussing where are you going, why are you going, how are you going, and the last is who's going with you. And today, the topic will be, where are you going? Minsan na we ask ourselves, really? Am I on the place that you want me to be? God is the blessing, is the promise you have told me. Am I there? There are some questions in our mind, where am I going? So, last week po, Brother Elaine mentioned to us about the journey of the Israel from the Egypt going to their promised land. So let's just take a quick look about it. So that's Egypt, and then they went to the desert of Paran. That's the wilderness, and it took them 40 years. 40 years to be in the wilderness. And these are some words that we can, some points that we can understand. The number of Israelites that left Egypt was 6 million. So 6 million. And I tried to check the population of Los Angeles County. We are 9.86. So I would say 3/4 of the population of Los Angeles were much the same as the population of the Israelites who came out of Egypt. Dami nun na. Imagine yung kapitbahay nyo, ilan yung tao dun sa building ng kapitbahay nyo. You guys all left Egypt. And I believe when they were traveling, they're not just like packed with their clothes in. They know they're living in Egypt. They're not going to live there anymore. So probably they're bringing their animals with them, yung goats nila, yung kabuhayan nila, everything that they have, their clothes, their food probably. Maybe if they have goats and cows with them, I believe it's with them. And can you imagine how big, how chaotic that would be, marching 6 million people getting out of Egypt. And they only have one leader, which is Moses. And then let's see. So 40 years in the wilderness from Egypt to Canaan, the promised land. That's why they were called the wandering Jews. Remember in our history, the Israelites are called wandering Jews because they spent their 40 years in the wilderness looking for the promised land. And then the first generation of Israelites from Egypt died in the wilderness. Namatay silang lahat. The 6 million who are 20 years old or more, they all died. So basically, if you were born 1 year old from Egypt and then they reached the promised land, they all died. Only the 20-year-old people survived. The 20-year-old people, Joshua and Caleb. You will gonna know why. Bakit namatay yung the rest of the Israelites? Do you know why? Because they didn't believe God. They are people, the Israelites turned into Reclamites. You know what a Reclamite is? Reclamador. Imagine there's pillar of clouds above their head during daytime so they won't feel the heat of the sun. And in the evening, they have the pillar of fire, like instant heater, na nandun sila sa wilderness. And the manna, I think in masyadong makita doon. There were manna from heaven. Every morning when they get up, oops, may bread na ng manna. All they need to do is to pick it up. And not only that, for that, the manna is only good for that day. You shouldn't take more than what you can have. You know what's gonna happen? Dahil mapapanis, it's gonna get spoiled. So they need to only pick up what they have for that day. And then tomorrow again, God is there to provide a new, fresh of manna for them. And yet they complain. They say, God, sawang-sawa na kami sa tinapay. Lord, lagi namang pandesal. Can we have meat? We need protein. And what God did, God sent quails in the desert. And they have a meat for 1 month. That's how good they are. But in spite of the goodness of God, in spite of God showing them His power, in spite of opening the Red Sea for them to go through, they still doubt God. They complain, God, this is too much. 40 years, Lord, hello? If you're telling me to be patient, God, sobrang patience naman. I mean, 40 years. 40 years. 40 years of no permanent home. Every time Moses told them, okay, get up, camp. We're gonna be going to the north. And they will need to pack up all their tent, all their animals, their clothes, and everything. Ang hirap maglipat. Remember when you moved to another house? That is the hardest thing to do. I mean, carrying those boxes and going to another place, man, that's hard. And for the Israelites, they cannot do it. They get tired, they got fed up, and they said, God, we can't do this. So God was so angry about them. All of them died, except the people 20 years old, Joshua and Caleb. And now we're going to go to that part of our story. When they see the promised land, this is what they saw. The walls of Jericho. It's just weird pag sinabi mo, God, you gave us the promise 40 years in the wilderness, and yet the promised land is this? Walls of Jericho surrounding the city of Jericho. How are we gonna go in? We are young. Remember, 20 years old kids, basically, they're still minor based on sa US, right? 21 is the adulthood, tama ba? They're still young, and how can we conquer walls of Jericho? I just want you to understand, this is how Jericho looked like, the ancient Jericho. It's a huge city. It's a 2 concentric walls. They said it's like impenetrable. It's hard to go in. From this, by looking at it, you can know that the people who resides here are smart people. The people that resides here are warriors. Why? Dahil alam nila yung technique nila. They need to defend their city by creating 2 walls. So that anyhow, the enemy can able to break the first wall, but still the second wall is there. Have you seen Lord of the Rings? Remember when they have wars? I think it has the same castle as this. 2 concentric walls all together. And it's so hard to go through on how you can penetrate the city. And remember, okay, that's what God is about to do in the life of Joshua, Caleb, and the new generation of Israelites. So we have an idea of what Jericho is. It says 6 feet from the ground, 46 feet high from the ground, and then retaining wall 12 to 15 feet. So doble pa yung walls na nandoon sa first wall. And in between the embankment of the wall, the brick has 20 to 26 feet high. The brick is 6 feet thick. Yung mud na nasa between sa kanila is 6 feet thick. So, by just looking at it, we can tell na Jericho is impossible to go through. It's really impossible for a 20-year-old kid who's trying to penetrate the Jericho wall. And knowing Israelites are slaves. They were slaves in Egypt. They were never like an army. They were not trained to fight. They were never trained to fight because they were slaves. So, this is an example of what a modern Jericho will be. It's a castle in front, so I'm just letting you show it. So, these are the people that lives in Canaan at that time. So, there's a lot of people that lives there. So, we have the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. It's all in Exodus 20, the verses are there. And just like what I told you, the first stop is the walls of Jericho, the city of Jericho. Hindi pa lahat tapos yun. When they conquer the walls of Jericho, the fight is not over yet. They still need to conquer different kinds of tribes. Parang it's USA with different state, with different leaders in it. So, the first stop will be the walls of Jericho, the city of Jericho, and Joshua's army is only 40,000. 40,000 lang ang army ni Joshua, it says on Joshua 4:14. So, what did God say here? Sabi ganun, the Lord your God will destroy the nations you invade their land, and you will occupy it and settle there. After the Lord destroys those nations, make sure that you don't follow the religious practices, because that would be fatal. Don't try to find out they worship their God so that you won't worship in the same way. Do not worship the Lord your God do not worship the Lord your God in the way they worship their God. For their worship of their gods, they do all the disgusting things that the Lord hates. They even sacrifice their children in the fires on their altars. So, yung tao sa Jericho, the people in Jericho are really wicked. The people in Canaan, they are really wicked people. They even sacrifices their sons and daughters to fire just to worship for their God. So God is telling them destroy everything, and when God tells destroy everything, He will destroy the women, the men, the children, the animals, and everything in it, even their crops, it has to be destroyed. That's the commandment of God. What we need to do when you don't know where you're going, it's only the 3 points lang po. So number 1, acknowledge God's power. Acknowledge God's power. So I'll read the verse. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all the people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give you. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised to Moses. Verse 5, no one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you. So that was God telling Joshua, that was God's promise to him. You know, Joshua, maybe you're looking at the number of people that is with you. Maybe you're looking, they're young, they're children. But this is what I'm telling you. Every foot that you go through, I'll give it, you'll be conqueror. You'll be victorious, and I will never leave you nor forsake you. And in verse 6, God said, be strong and courageous, because you will lead this people to inherit the land I swore to them. Verse 7 again, be strong and very courageous. You can tell 2 times, inulit ng Diyos. Ang sabi niya, actually 3 times, He mentioned in verse 6, 7, and 9. He said, be strong. Nung una, He said, be strong and courageous. Verse 7, be strong and very courageous. And the verse 9 says, be strong and courageous. He mentioned it 3 times. He acknowledged God's plan. He acknowledged God's plan. So what Joshua did, so he ordered the 2 spies. Okay, let's try to spy on Jericho city. So he sent 2 spies in there, and from them, someone helped them. The name is Rahab. Rahab is a prostitute. Although she knows that the God of Israelites are a mighty God. They heard the news already. If you can read on Joshua chapter 2, all of the verses of Joshua chapter 2 is about Rahab and the spies. They were trembling with fear. So Rahab said, okay, I will help you. I will hide you on my roof, because the people, the soldiers of Jericho, already knew that the 2 spies are in their city. Okay, I'm going to hide you, but you need to promise me one thing. You need to spare my family. Because Rahab know they're going to die soon. First, they acknowledge God's power, and now they believe in God's power. It says, now the gates of Jericho were securely barred. That was in Joshua 1:2. Because of the Israelites, no one went out, no one came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, hands along its kings and its fighting men. So the people of Jericho knew already, okay, tinitiktikan tayo ng Israelites. The Israelites are here. Obviously, they have plans for us. They were trying to do something for us, so they locked the door of the walls of the front door of the Jericho, of the city of Jericho. They locked the gate and no one came in. Even siguro yung mga late na people na dumating, when they locked it, they didn't open it. So they were trembling. They were trembling with fear and no, this is going to be a battle. I would feel that if you are from the people, if you are from the Jericho people, you will be scared too, because you know something is going on, and these people, Joshua's people, God, they know who their God is. The people of Jericho know what God did to them in the wilderness. So, number 2, we believe in God's power, and the next will be up upon God's plan. So what did Joshua get up the next morning? I'll just paraphrase it. These are the instructions given to Joshua. Priests carrying the Ark of Covenant. March around the city once for 6 days with priests blowing their trumpets. On the 7th day, march 7 times with the priests blowing their trumpets. When you hear a long blast, have the whole army give a loud shout. And then on number 5, do not say a word till the day I tell you to shout. So the instruction will be, have priests carrying the Ark of Covenant, the 7 priests blowing the horns, the trumpet, ram's horns, and in the middle is the Ark of the Covenant, and the rest will be the soldiers, the armies. And the thing is, there was a special instruction here, Joshua 6:10. Joshua issued orders to the army, you are not to shout or even let your voice be heard. Don't utter a word until I tell you to shout. If I tell you to shout, then shout. But imagine that 6 days. They probably woke on the first day, they were marching, blowing their trumpets. That's the sound of a ram's horn. They were marching on the walls, around the wall, one time. And you see how huge yung city ng Jericho, right? And the instruction for the people, you're not allowed to speak. You need to be quiet. You need to be quiet. You don't utter a single word. We just march and march. And then on the 2nd day, they did it. The 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and on the 7th day, they go around the city 7 times. And I want you to understand that when God gave this instruction to Joshua, only Joshua knew that they need to go around 7 times. He didn't tell the people of Israelites, okay, pagdating na 7 days, we're gonna go around 7 times. He didn't. He just gave them the instruction. 7th day, we're gonna go around. While they were going around, then that's the finally nalaman ng Israelites, oh, we're going 7 times on the 7th day. So that was the plan. That was the plan given to Joshua. So the point number 3 is what to do when you don't know where you're going, is to conquer in God's power. You conquer with God's power. And then as they completed the 7th day, I'll just read on verse 20. So the army shouted and the trumpets were blown again. As soon as the army heard the sound of the trumpets, they shouted loudly and the wall collapsed. So just by shouting, the walls collapsed. The army charged straight ahead into the city and captured it. So just by shouting, ah! They go like that. The walls collapsed. How we conquer with God's weapon. We know that God's power will help us go through, but we need a weapon. We need a weapon on how we can conquer our walls of Jericho. You know what was the weapon? Said so Nun, son of Joshua, called the priest, pick up the Ark of the Covenant. He told them, and have 7 priests carry 7 trumpets made from ram's horn in front of the Ark of the Lord. And that was it. That was the instruction on what you're going to bring. The 7 trumpets made of ram's horn and the Ark of Covenant. God did say, Joshua, train your people. Get the best sword you have. gather all your arrows and bows, get catapults. If there were cannons that was discovered during that times, I believe they don't have it. God could have probably said that, right? But no, God is different. God said you need to bring the Ark of the Covenant. You need to have 7 rams of horn. And that's it. That's the only weapon you need. So, tatanungin natin, what's the significance of this? What is the Ark of Covenant? You know, the Ark of Covenant symbolizes the presence of God. So the 7 priests carrying in the front the Ark of Covenant, and then the people whom, if you're going to look at it, the position of the Ark of Covenant, why is it in the middle? Bakit hindi pinlay siya at the back end? Bakit sa middle siya pinlay? So we're going to tell that later on as we go to our story. So that's the Ark of the Covenant, and another one is the trumpets. It says 6 ram's horn, or they call it shofar in Hebrew. You would understand that when people, during the time of Israel, they have 2 trumpets. They have the silver trumpets, number 2, which is used to call for an assembly. So if there's an assembly during that time, they would blow the silver trumpet. And then they know the sound of that trumpet. They need to go and have an assembly. It's also used to call people to battle. To call people to battle. To go through a battle. But amazingly, God instructed Joshua to bring the shofar. The shofar is the ram's horn. It's a jubilee trumpet. They use the ram's horn when they need to proclaim a king, because it's a jubilation, it's a happy day. And they use also the ram's horn to declare the battle already won. So you understand what God is telling Joshua. You don't need the silver trumpet to call for war. You need to bring your victory from you. You'll be blowing the horns, the ram's horn, because we're gonna have victory today. In our life, we do face our walls too. I mean, God already promised us to be in this promised land. I believe most of us were thinking, oh, maybe USA is my promised land. I can see being blessed there. It's a land full of milk and honey. But the question is, we have walls that we see every day. It's not a perfect promised land, but we always have walls that we face. And the question is, what kind of wall are you facing today? Is it a wall of anxiety? Is it a wall of agony? Is it a wall of despair? Is it a wall of negativity? Is it a wall of immigration law? I don't know. We don't know. It could be a double walls facing you right now as huge as the Jericho walls. But what God is telling Joshua, what God is telling you today, is to acknowledge God's power. You know that your God will never leave you. You know your God will never leave you. He will never forsake you. You will be victorious in every step that you go. That's what He promised Joshua, and that's He's promising you today. Believe in God's power. You have seen how the walls fall by just shouting. They didn't even lift a hand. Actually, that was it. Wala silang masyadong ginawa for the walls of Jericho to collapse. They just shout. And there's one thing they did. They didn't talk. Remember, earlier I mentioned to you, don't say not a single word. You're not supposed to say a single word. And then I was asking, Lord, why? Why can't they sing? Why can't they talk? Why are they just marching with their mouth shut? And you know what God is telling us? Sometimes in times of problems, in times facing your wall, all you need to do is to shut up and let God do His thing. Stop saying, stop complaining, stop arguing with God, stop saying, God, this is not true, God, this is unfair, God, you're not fair. When faced with the walls, you need to be quiet and let God do His thing. Let conquer in God's power. You use to conquer God's weapon. What is the Ark of Covenant? As I mentioned to you today, it's a symbol of God's presence. Why is it middle? Why is it placed in the middle of the priest and the army? Then the other weapon that we have is the ram's horn. It says you go from your victory, not to your victory. You walk from your victory, not to your victory. So when you're facing trials, when you're facing troubles, when you're facing your walls, you don't go to your victory, but you go from your victory because you know that you're going to be victorious. In times of your agony, in times of your trouble, write down every verse. Write down every promises that God told you. And that's how you're going to make your Jericho fall. The thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. Who is the thief? Satan comes here to kill your joy, to destroy your peace, to get your future, to destroy everything you have. That's what the enemy is trying to do in every struggles you have. When faced with problems, you can see God. I don't think I'm gonna get better from the sickness that I have. Lord, I don't think this problem that I have right now, I don't have solution in it. But I don't know how am I gonna do it. And the enemy will keep telling you, oh no, that's gonna be hard. No, problems with your status is gonna be hard. You cannot make it. You know, problems with your children, oh no, it's not gonna be good. You're always gonna end up crying and praying. No, God cannot heal you anymore. You have that sickness for so long, and God is not able to do anything for you. Alam niyo po, that's the instinct of Satan, to inject us with things that is negativity. But on the second verse, it said, I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. God, it's a past tense. I came. God already gave us the life, and you may have it abundantly. You may enjoy your life. That's what God promised to you today. And as we all rise up and let's pray,